David Lammy.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I begin by, with a spirit of generosity, and welcome the moves in the bill for self-build particularly. We have needed to inject some energy into the ability to buy some land and build your own home effectively when we see the markets in Scandinavia, in Australia and in the States, and I welcome that. And of course, in an area of London with lots of houses of multiple occupation, as we've just heard from the Honourable Gentleman, the banning orders and the regulation here of some of our rogue landlords is very necessary. But very, very sadly, I have to say that this bill is of deep, deep concern. And at this critical juncture for housing in our country, it is frankly extraordinary that the government should propose a bill that will effectively see the decimation of social housing in this country. I believe, and I genuinely believe, that there are members on the opposite benches who also believe in mixed communities. I love the idea of the London in which my father arrived in the 1950s, where he was able to buy his own home for £6,000 in Tottenham by the late 1960s, and where his sister, who arrived with him, was able to get a council house on the Croydon block of the Broadwater Farm. But also at that time we had a private rented sector, a third. The vast majority of Londoners moving into a home this year are moving in the private rented sector. Nothing in this bill really to address the huge soaring rents, 40% over 2 years in Richmond, 30% in Kingston, 20% in the London borough of Haringey. And so for all of those people struggling with their bills, now on average 46% of their salary is going to rent, nothing, the government said nothing about that group. If you believe in mixed communities, then please come to this House and say something about social rents, social housing, affordable housing. But instead we have a bill that will see the reduction of that because of money taken from councils already cash-strapped. And of course, this bill is coming before the spending review, in which we know there'll be more money taken from local authorities. So the London that one envisages, that one will see, surely, when you have a starter home scheme, of course, a starter home scheme that will be exempt from 106, so all the infrastructure, the schools, the clinics, the hospitals, the children's centres that have to come around housing will not be there. Exempt from the community, from the CILS, the Community Infrastructure Levy. So again, all the infrastructure gone. What kind of communities are we attempting to build here in London? It feels to me like the Secretary of State has set his face on building Paris. Great. An inner London of the very wealthy, all of us in this chamber having assets, all of us having homes, anyone who owns a home in London, certainly if it was bought 10, 15 years ago, way over £1 million, and those without assets. And those without assets condemned to the private rented sector. Why? Because these new starter homes won't help them. If you are on a living wage in London, you can't afford a starter home on this scheme. What's the point of talking about it? It's a waste of time. It's effectively a scheme for the middle-class children with a 20% discount. And I might say, on running for London, I came to this view. I supported right to buy. I think it is right to exercise that right. But the crisis here in London, forget one for one, we've arrived at a place where we need a moratorium on right to buy. Not to extend it any further, we need to address the fundamental problems of taking property paid by taxpayers out of the system, subsidised, up to £100,000 discount. There's no other area of government policy where Conservatives would support taking taxpayers' money and giving it to those who already have and taking it from those without. This is a shame. And if Zach Goldsmith becomes the next Mayor of London alongside this bill, very, very tragically, housing will be permanently ruined in this country for the poor.